This lecture has been funded by the Anonymous Committee, and we're all thrilled to welcome GRONK back to Madison and back to Tandem Press, where he's working on a wonderful new series of prints. We hope that you'll all come by Tandem and visit his work there at your convenience. The new prints and monoprints he's created this week include depictions from his signature image of La Tormenta, a solitary figure with her back facing the viewer. A reoccurring theme, this metaphoric figure is ambiguous, sometimes comical and sometimes tragic. In the 1970s, avant-garde artist Glugio Gronk Nicandro, born in 1954...
It's a lie. Much later than that.
Co-founded the guerrilla performance group ASCO, Spanish for nausea, a name that suggests the disdain he and his colleagues felt towards what they perceived as the smugness of American values. The rebellious ASCO operated outside the boundaries of traditional art, expressing ideas and views through street theater, performance, photography, video, site-specific installation, murals, paintings, and prints. Meanwhile, Gronk was also pursuing his own work in the form of drawings, paintings, and solo performances. In 1978, he began keeping a kind of visual diary, a series of bound drawings executed daily, which now runs to some 40 volumes. His paintings on canvas...
250 volumes of the drawing books.
Note to self. His paintings on canvas have grown in scale and now receive critical attention from galleries and museums throughout the United States. Gronk has had solo exhibitions at the Mexican Museum in San Francisco, in numerous galleries in Los Angeles, as well as locations in Seattle, Chicago, and Paris. In 1994, he had a 20-year retrospective exhibition at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. In addition to his artwork, he has created set designs for theatrical productions and operas in Los Angeles and Paris. Please join me in welcoming Gronk.
Thank you. It's good to be back in Madison, Wisconsin, where, you know, it's a big treat for me because I get to see the snow, and I don't get that. I'm from Los Angeles, so it's really great to be here in the cold. This is not the first time I've been here. I've been here, I don't know, since 1994, I believe it was, or 93. But I did do a show here at the museum in 94. Was it 94, Russell? In 1994. And that was an on-site piece. I was doing all these on-site installation pieces in different museums. And it started probably 1984. I did a show at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. They were picking 10 artists, new directions art was going into. And there were artists that were having their first shows, like Bill Viola. A lot of Susan Caprell was also one of those. We call ourselves Summer of '85, like a class. And it was several different artists. They asked me initially, what would you like to do? They had heard about my work. And a lot of the things that I was doing, I was actually taping people to walls on city streets and calling them instant murals. I would have a dinner party on a traffic island. Traffic would be going in both directions. I'd get a group of people to eat a meal before the police came, and documented all of these kinds of activities. And so Mocha heard about this strange guy from East Los Angeles. Even in elementary school and middle school, I was also a strange guy. But they heard about this guy who's from East LA and was doing these pieces on the streets. And so they asked if they could see my work, and I said, yeah, sure, come by, and came to my hotel where I lived. I lived in this really like a dive of a place. Actually, it was kind of like a brothel, kind of a seedy, transient hotel. And it was, I moved in because I thought it was going to be character building for me. And it turned out to be a building full of characters. But I moved in there, and I used it as my studio space. And so when these two women from Charm School, I guess graduates of Charm School that were the curators at Mocha, I knew they were graduates of Charm School because they knew how to sit down with one foot in front of the other. They wore like really nice black shoes with little gold buckles. They didn't wear any jewelry because they knew they were coming to my studio, and it's right in the middle of Skid Row. So they came over. They had to pay $5 actually to go up to my room at the front desk. And they go up and they said, could you show us what you do? And they were sitting on my bed when they said that. And so I started to show them my journals, my books, and they left. And I didn't think anything about it afterwards, but what happened was they called me up. And they called me up at this local bar that was across the street where I used to go all the time to have a cup of coffee and read the newspaper. And it was called the Score Bar. It's another dive of a place. And I guess in 1984, 85, I was really into that. But what happened was I called up and said, you've been picked to be in this show. What would you like to do? And I said, maybe foolishly, because after I said it, I became a painter. But because I was doing all these other things prior to that, I said, I want to do a painting the size of a football field. I want it to be 300 feet across by 30 feet high. And they said, oh, we got Frank Gehry's Temporary Contemporary. It's this whole big, huge building. You can do your piece there. How long will it take? And I said, 2 weeks. They said, what do you need? I said, a lot of coffee and a lot of donuts. They said, where would you like your donuts from? Stupid me said Winchell's, you know, one of these local places. And when I could have had them like imported from, you know, France or someplace else. But it was open 24 hours, and so I had my, you know, donuts and coffee, and I completed the piece. So right after that, everybody started calling me a painter, and a lot of different other places actually invited me to their city, and I was invited here in '94 to do the entire top floor of the museum here. And each time the experience is different, the architecture is different, the building, the people, the interactions that happen when I'm doing these pieces. One of the things I like for people to see the process of something actually being made. So it allows them to see, you know, the materials that you're using, that, you know, it's no great mystery. This is a bucket of paint, this is brushes. I'm doing this large piece, things can influence it. I went on a radio show at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I asked, you know, the director of the museum, who listens to the radio at 5 in the morning? He said, we've got a lot of farmers on the outskirts, GRONK, and, you know, they listen to this radio show. If you go on, maybe some will come in. And so I went on this radio show, and they asked me, well, you know, what influences your work? And I said, well, different things that happened to me influenced my work. There was an earthquake in Los Angeles. And I was in my studio, and this wall cracked open, and just things started crashing down, and everything was dark and black, and just a really horrible experience inside the studio space. Well, Farmer John, his wife, and about 10 kids come into the museum that day, and Farmer John says to me, I heard you on the radio, and I brought my entire family because I wanted them to see what a GRONK looked like. Well, you know them earthquakes you talk about in Los Angeles? Well, you know what we got here? We got tornadoes. And they do the same thing you were describing. So here's this very urban person, me, you know, like, and having this conversation with somebody, you know, from here, completely different experience. And so that exchange, what took place there was all of a sudden this twisting shape started to appear in my work, which wouldn't have happened unless that contact, that sort of contributed to the piece. It's sort of like improvisation in a way. It's sort of allowing things to take place, and also things that influence me. I'm going to show you a short little clip right now, and it's something that influenced me. It's this woman named Ninon Sevilla. Now, I don't know if anybody here knows who she is. She's an actress from Mexico. This film clip actually comes from 1948, and she was a big star at the time. She made about 20 movies all along this line. They were like really heavy melodramas, you know, just over-the-top soap opera. But in between, there was always this festive kind of musical number that would happen. She was always a cabaret star in all of her movies, or like, you know, rags to riches kind of story. And so I was on a flight to Telluride, to the Telluride Film Festival, and I saw this woman who was wearing a turban on the plane. And I thought, she must be somebody. I mean, who else would be wearing that turban? And I went to the movie that I selected, and it was this movie from Mexico, circa 1948 also. Aventurera was the title of the film. And I'm sitting in an audience with a bunch of people, and we're all, they're announcing this woman who I had never heard of. And she comes running down the aisle to receive these flowers. And I go, oh, it's the woman with the turban on the airplane that we came in with. And she goes up and she receives her flowers, and she's very thankful. And after that, I was a fan for life. I said, I have to see all of her movies. And this musical number from this piece, the film is called Perdida, and I showed it actually to Peter Sellers, the director. We were working on a production in Los Angeles, a Stravinsky piece called The Soldier's Tale, and there's a devil in that piece. And I said, you know what? There's this image of this devil woman. She's singing to all these small little supermen. And she's singing this song, how she loves Superman. And I think I can connect it with Laurie Anderson's Oh, Superman in some way or another. But here's the clip I'll show you, and it's a fun number. She can't sing, she can't dance, but your eyes are just riveted to her. She's wonderful. She's sort of like Tormenta. Isn't she great? She can't dance, and once she starts to sing, But the sets are lovely. And can you imagine, you've never seen this in your life, huh? Oh, it just puts Ricky Martin to shame. Those horns appear in some of my work. They're the Supermen. Oh, it's lovely. Big, none of them are coordinated. They said, if you have black shoes, show up that day and you'll be in the film. So none of the shoes match either. And she's on this huge podium that's like the Oscar podium. I just love these Superman outfits. Look at that camera angle. Betty Grable, you could have her. Rita Hayworth, you could have her. Ninon Sevilla for me. They're all mismatched here. They're all looking at their flying stuff. Look at that shot. Bubsy Berkeley, watch out. Look at that. She's fabulous. Look at that city of the future. Look at how tiny they are. So this is what I do every night. I watch these movies in my studio. And whoever comes over, have you ever heard of Ninon Sevilla? They usually say no. Oh, I've got all of her movies now. I think this was worth the trip here this evening. And I study it for my prints that I do. So watch out, Tandem Press. That's Ninon Sevilla, and I guess I push video projection mute.
I think so. Let's do it together.
I did that.
Okay. And
Okay,
then
now slides. Main
main
menu. Cool. Okay. This is a group of people that I grew up with. That's me. That's Patsy. That's Willie. And that's Harry. Now, the four of us grew up together, and right out of high school, that's when we decided to form a group. And the group was called ASCO, which in Spanish means nausea. And that was kind of the reaction that a lot of people had to our work that we were doing. Oh, God, it's so disgusting what they're doing. Well, this piece is called the Asshole Mural. We would find different things and then claim it and build some type of notoriety about it in some fashion or way. And here we are posing with it. Now, actually, we're all Latinos, and we had no access to Hollywood, actually. You know, great admirer of Mexican filmmaking, but being born here in the United States, we, you know, were not in the films, really. So we devised our own cinema. We called it the No Movie, making movies without the use of celluloid. And we would do different things on streets, graveyards, wherever we could find a location. Slash prices at a shoe store. This is about 1973, 1974. Now, about 1972 is when we came together as a group and created these images as if they were, you know, from a movie, but they're actually not. And if you know your art history, Cindy Sherman did that, but much later in the late 70s, her earliest cinematic pieces. This is like, I even had the No Movie Awards, which was a parody on the Academy Awards, except it was given to people who did not make movies. And we would stage lavish productions just like the Academy Awards or the Golden Globe Awards, and give a sense of cinematic sense to the imagery. This is called Waiting for Tickets. It's in front of the Opera House in Los Angeles. And what we did was utilize the city that we lived in as our canvas. We sort of went to different locations and in the middle of the night staged something. I'm sort of like giving you a lot of information about things that influenced me as well, just like that movie clip that I showed you. Well, in the early 70s, well, even before that, when I was in high school, I always, you know, gravitated to these films that had an impact. Now, when I grew up, I wanted to be like Marcello Mastroianni in La Dolce Vita. And in that movie, Anita Ekberg is walking around and she's carrying this pussycat into this big fountain. And, you know, they're always drinking espresso and they're always like, you know, real cool in little sports cars. So I always admired that look. And so when we recreated certain scenes, we would take them from an assortment of film. Another episode in Osco's life was that Harry Gamboa, who is a writer, he has a book out. It's called Urban Exile. And in his book, there's a lot of the performance pieces. They're all documented. You'd see photographs from 1972 all the way to the present of Osco. And it also has a lot of the written text pieces. This is one of them. It's called Jetter Jinx, is the title of this particular piece. That's my instant mural where I actually taped Patsy to a wall on a city street. That's the reaction it got. People were surprised. What do we do? This guy's taping somebody to the wall there. This is Tormenta, but I'm going to get back to her after I go back to another clip. But first I'm going to read a piece. I mentioned Harry, and Harry is still writing. This is actually his book. can see it. Urban Exile. You can get it at Borders or Amazon.com. It's 2001. This piece is called, it's actually a segment. And listen attentively. Do not fall asleep, please. It's called There's Asphalt Up Your Ass. There's asphalt up your ass, as far as the eye can see, as far as you or I will go. It isn't really asphalt, it doesn't stink, like concrete ideas, like egotistical jealousy, like the tip of your tongue. There's asphalt up your ass. I know that you don't care, but think of all the freeways that will go unpaved, of all the dirt roads that we'll have to travel in order to get lost, in order to confuse those who persecute us, who violate our fractured past. There's asphalt up your ass, and your constipation has us all misdirected. We all headed up a blind alley, but I'll drive faster because the danger excites me. Ooh, the possibility of collision, the possibility of fatality, the possibility of acceleration into a wall of asphalt excites me. There's asphalt up your ass. I want you to guess who put it there. What is it doing there? Is it melting? I'd be the first to admit that it's an absurd situation and that it shouldn't occur even to an asshole. But there's always exceptions to the rules that govern reality and perception, duality and deception, insertion and extraction, secretion and insurrection. There's asphalt up your ass. But I wouldn't be alarmed. It's probably a tumor of prehistoric origin. Maybe it's a rumor in the form of solid evidence. Either way, it's blocking my view. It's blocking my ray of hope and casting shadows with many shapes. There are faces that are unfamiliar. There are buildings that would collapse. The shadowy forms fill the void. The asphalt shadows empty your soul of what is ancient, relieves you of history, erases your memory. There's asphalt up your ass, and you may never get it out. Do you think that you'll survive? You just might succeed in your quest to continue on as normal, to walk a straight line, to forget that your ass is plugged. You just might succeed in your desire to retain the waste of your existence, to personally own it all, to never having been lost control. There's asphalt up your ass, and I think that you deserve it because pain is a pleasure that shouldn't be denied when it's self-inflicted. And I think you implanted it only to get the attention of those who hate you, of those who'd wish you were dead, of those who would kill you, of those who would cherish you. And I think you're faking it because no one knowingly jams asphalt up their own ass, unless it was an act of God or a fit of passion. An accident isn't a perversion and vice versa. So when that asphalt is pressured from both ends, don't be surprised if it implodes with enough force to blow your ass off the crust of the earth. There's asphalt up your ass. So don't be surprised when everyone falls in love with you. It will be their response to fear and loathing. I know this isn't logical, but confusion of the senses is the failure of our time. Critical thinking is something that is smeared and forgotten and smeared and forgotten. If it were up to me, I'd look the other way. But the asphalt is a magnet and it has a hold on me. There's asphalt up your ass, and I'm glad it isn't me. But if it was, I wouldn't maintain the facade. I'd scream in everyone's face until someone would help me to remove it and return it to where it belongs. Up yours, up yours, up yours, up yours. Harry's an angry man. But that was kind of the work that we were doing in the 70s. A lot of the pieces that we were doing also influenced other artists. And I'm going to have to eject, excuse me, and put on another piece. Who's that?
Do you want the slide to stay on?
No.
Okay.
Can we turn the slide off?
Should we stop it?
Yeah. We're just learning the system here.
We may have to turn everything off and start over again to get the projector.
All off.
That's lights.
Oh.
Amen. Turn the system off.
Oh, okay. Push to start. Where did you come from? Okay, can we get the lights off? No.
Let's turn the video on, the screen on first. Maybe projector on.
This is directed by a Finnish film director, and he based it on Asphalt Up Your Ass. And it's a new piece. It's 1995, I believe.
He said when it stops flashing, it'll come on.
No.
Anne?
Only she knows, and she lives here in Wisconsin. Gonna have to take you everywhere with me.
Okay, it's all there, so you may need to turn.
Just to go to play?
Play.
Ah, woo.
Oh, cool. Well, you don't applaud because you don't know what you're seeing. Up. It's still not going on. It's in there.
It's in there.
Up. It's funny to hear an actress just recite the same lines that I just got to read right now. There's 13 gas stations, and Finland has the longest asphalt road in Europe. And all those models represent all the different gas stations.
It's blocking my view. It's blocking my ray of hope.
The shadowy forms the asphalt shadows empty your soul of all ancient. Releasing the history erases your memory.
Did I do okay? Yeah, is that fine? Well, that is a small fragment from this lengthy road. It goes through all the different gas stations in Finland. And Ipol, who directed this, had read Harry's piece, and he's working now on another movie based on another one of Harry's writing. So Asko, again, we're still working together, not as a group. Patsy actually is doing a lot more film work. She was one of the production designers on this movie called Mi Familia. And she designed like what the household looked like and stuff and that. She did another one called Luminarias. So she's doing a lot of sets, and she actually is a good painter as well. Willie is a musician, and he plays music now. And Harry and I still get together, and we do a lot of collaborative work. He's giving a talk at the Getty based on the Getty, this huge museum that just opened in Los Angeles. In fact, I was invited to go to the Getty to give a talk, and they said, pick any work in the Getty and give a lecture on it. So I picked Monet's Haystacks. And of course, the person that worked at the Getty said, GRONK. They're not haystacks, they're wheat stacks. And I said, yes, but the title of my talk is A Roll in the Hay with Monet. It just doesn't sound right. So we had a big argument, and I called up a couple of people, and they said, GRONK, you can say, haystacks instead of wheat stacks. I was comparing his haystacks with the Tormenta series that I do, which is of this woman who has her back to the viewer. You never see her from the front, only from the back. And a couple of years ago, I came here to Madison to perform a piece that was written by a composer. His name is Joseph Gonzalez. And he lives in the same building as I did. He just recently left. But we got together, and he said, I'd like to do write a composition based on Tormenta. And I said, oh, great. It's like the Tormenta cantata. And it was written for a string quartet, which was the Cronus string quartet. They're on one side of the stage. A soprano who had her back to the audience and was wearing the same dress. And I was in the middle with a wall that's 12 feet by 8 feet, and I had a brush that has a microphone attached to it. So you hear it going in and out of the composition like shh, 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 shh. But it was also the conductor baton, because the string quartet is following the tempo of the brush, which means I had to learn how to paint to a metronome in order to keep a tempo for the string quartet and the soprano. And so that piece was done here a couple of years ago, and we just did it again a couple of months ago in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a new string quartet and a new soprano. So Tormenta, can we have the slides again? Yep, this is Tormenta. And she's always like doing these, like trying to make a shadow, but they never really conform to what she's trying. It's like all of a sudden there's antlers like on her shadow. This one's called Puta's Cave, and it's sort of like a play on Plato's Cave. Then I came to Madison, and this is what I did at Tandem Press a couple of years ago. And this one's called Echo. A lot of the times I take a lot of the information from mythology, put it into this series that I've been working on. And I just finished like 24 pieces, prints of Tormenta, and then I would sort of deface her in a way, put all kinds of lines and imagery, the kind of work that I'm doing now with a lot of my other work. This is her. She's on a lifeboat with a lifesaver, and the Titanic is way off in the distance there. This is the piece I did at MoCA, which was the size of the football field. So it's a huge, big piece. And this is, again, is 1985. I was into donuts because they kept on bringing them to me to eat. And of course, there's my homage to the coffee cup as well, which was a constant thing that I was delivered. This was here upstairs on the top floor of the Ovia Museum. And this is the one where I told you I wanted to do these tornadoes that twisted and twisted through this landscape. So that was based on that conversation I had with that man that came with his family. This is another installation at another site. So each site was completely different. The shapes and forms still appear, like all these origami kind of shapes that go up into the top there. Now, these are my journals. These are my notebooks. And I have like probably close to 300 by now. They're about 250 pages each. And I started them in 1978. And they're kind of like a diary in a way for me. Most people have not seen the journal, so I'm scanning a lot of them into my computer, and I eventually want to do a book of just the drawings, which are sort of like a lot of different imagery coming from, you know, all kinds of different sources. Oh, this one's upside down. That one's upside. No, it's not. Just checking. So a lot of them come and I incorporate a lot of different sources. I'm a big eavesdropper, and I listen to a lot of people and having conversations, and they sort of have an impact on my work as well. I was in the library one day and I overheard this woman on the telephone, and she was looking at her computer and she was talking to these people over the phone. And she goes, "Oh yes, we have a book on ventriloquism. It's called How to Talk to Your Hand Without Looking Stupid." And I thought, oh, that's a beautiful title. Wrote that down in the journal, in the book. So a lot of these just very quick imagery. Sometimes they have an impact also on my stage work that I do for the theater. Funny one, huh? That's so goofy. Yeah, that's the other side of me. It's like showing your diary. It's like, I get a kick out of it because I haven't seen these slides really. I've never shown them. Yeah, what would Freud say about that, huh? Yeah, some of the information, I mean, there's Ninon Sevilla's little pedestal. This is from Tandem Press. And again, sort of what I do in my own journals creep into other things that I do. So this is a monoprint that I did there a couple of years ago at Tandem Press. Here's another. A lot of, again, the ideas are very theatrical. I mean, it's like thinking it a lot of the times in how opera, how theater, different things have an impact on the direction of my work. This is a piece I did with Peter Sellers, and it was Stravinsky's A Soldier's Tale. I did all these huge paintings behind this orchestra, and they would move on stage. They'd have a crew of people, and by the end of the concert, you'd see a whole panorama of all of these pieces. I wasn't the costume designer. Like I suggested to Peter, he should use that devil thing from Ninon Sevilla. This was the devil for the piece. And all of these different images are moving on the stage with the orchestra. Peter Sellers is real cool to work with. He called me up and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm working on a show. It's called Queen of Denial." And he says, "Oh, great. I want you to do this Stravinsky piece with me. Stravinsky was all about denial." He was? Yeah. Oh, he wanted to be considered like, you know, European, French, you know, but he was Jewish and from Russia. And sort of like that wasn't part of the avant. So he like, you know, I really want to be associated with the international movement of art. So he was denying a lot of stuff about his culture. So just continue what you're doing and make these huge pieces for the show. So I was in my studio a couple of weeks, and Peter would come over and take a look, and he goes, "Guess what? What? I've got this other production in Australia. I've got the biggest stage I've ever had. I want to do this big production. He said, it's even bigger than the state of California. And I said, your stage is bigger than the state of California? What is it? He goes, the Outback. I can do anything I want to. They just gave it to me. So I get these periodic calls. He goes, I'm doing this other production called The Mad Queen. What is it? He goes, I don't know yet. It hasn't been written. But wouldn't you like to do it? Clean your slate for 2003. So you know what production's in bad trouble when they have to resort to fog machines. That's the big thing in theater. It's like, oh, cover it up with fog. This is another production that I did in the early 90s, and this is a slice of pizza. It was in the middle of the stage, and it's a huge, big, oversized pizza, but I put a rocket engine on the inside of it, and the pepperonis lit up, and the jalapenos, which are like these other lights, were all illuminated from the inside. There's the rocket engines. And it's going to fly up into the rafters. At the time I was doing this, they had Miss Saigon in New York, and I thought I'd do like the West Coast kind of counter to Miss Saigon, so I did the flying pizza. And it shoots up into the rafters. And I would come into the theater and ask, is the pizza going to fly tonight? Because technically they were having a lot of problems with it. You can come up with a lot of great ideas, but you've got to have a crew and people that really, just like a tandem. It's like a great crew to work with. Your ideas flow, just people busy working there, and of course they don't know that I'm really like listening to everything they're saying, because it may end up somewhere. But I would come into I actually, by accident, entered into the theater almost, because I was doing all of these, taping people to walls, dinner parties in traffic islands, all these kinds of different things. But all of a sudden, once I got like a stamp of approval from a museum, and all of a sudden all these other people started asking me to do things, about 1989 or so, I got a call from a theater company, and they said, we're doing this play. It's like magical realism. I'm like listening on the phone, oh yeah, that never works, especially in the theater, let alone movies. But I'm doing this production, it's called Stone Wedding, and we'd love for you to do the design of it. I said, okay, send me the script. So they sent me the script, and I read this play, and it was the worst play I had ever read in my life. So I immediately called back and said, yes, I'll do it. Sounds wonderful. Really, really bad stuff. And in the theater, it's another collaboration. It's like working with the printers and the people that are helping assist the printers. It's a collaboration. And so you're all there together, and you're put into a room, and everybody shows, you're like, this is what you're going to do. This is my set. This is how it works. The lighting designer, the costume designer, everybody's connected. The director, the writer, the producers, and the actors, and everybody sits around. Well, I came in with my designs, of course, for this horrible play. They were all really excited about it, and I sort of like, well, it's a very strange play. And there was a scene, I'll give you an example of how bad it was. It was like a scene called the Garden of Sorrows. And of course, their idea of the Garden of Sorrows was probably all these weeping willows and stuff. And I came in with my design, which were these surfboards sticking out of terracotta planters. And the actor would roll them on stage, and they would be these huge, big terracotta planters with a big green surfboard sticking out, and the actors would walk in and out of that. Well, the writer came to see, what was going on with her production. She goes, that's not for my play, is it? And I said, yeah, that's the Garden of Sorrows. Those are surfboards and terracotta planters. And I said, yes, what's more sorrowful than 6 surfboards that'll never see the ocean? They've lost their purpose in life. They're landlocked. She didn't buy it. Neither did the director, so it never ended up in the show. But again, a lot of that material was great for me because I utilized it in a lot of other. In fact, one of the pieces, if nobody's caught it, is a planter with a terracotta surfboard in prints I'm doing at Tandem. Oh, that's it with the slides. I'm going to open it up to questions because you seem like a good group. What time is it?
About 20 after 6.
Oh, okay. How long have I been talking?
About 50 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is a good time then for questions. I usually put myself up to asking, are there any questions? But I've sometimes have gotten hecklers. You know, you go to different cities and the art students are like, okay, show us, prove it to us. You know, oh yeah, we know what you're about. Stop talking about your charmed life. We're retired. We want to hear about politics. You know, stuff like that. Or one time I said, okay, question. And the person, the first one, raises his hand and he says, how much is your bullshit worth? I said, that's a very intelligent question. Do you have any stupid ones? Of course, he shut up and didn't say a word for the rest of the day. Another time, there have been a lot of different things. I did this show at the San Jose Museum. Can we have some dramatic lighting on here? I don't want to. I usually, thank you. I usually tell people if they're going to appear on stage with me that the blue light is for me and for me alone. Find light where you may, but do not enter into my blue light. I did this other show at another museum where I'm doing my on-site pieces. And when you do your on-site pieces, of course, you get a big range of people. It's like from elementary school to senior citizen passes through a museum. And I did this show in one city, and in that particular place, they said, GRONK, Thursdays are free days. So be careful, put everything that you have that you might not want to be taken from where your work materials are. And that day, this mysterious man, he's like a homeless person, he's just smelling and just really down and out. But he had his hand, his coat wrapped around his hand. And I was up there painting, and then I saw him for the longest time. I would turn around and look, and there he would be. And I had a large lift to go all the way to the top of the building. And as soon as my lift came down, I walked to my art supplies, and he comes rushing over to me. And the security guards come, and they had seen him on the cameras. And they stole this small little Filipino woman who jumps in front of me and and the person, and he goes, I want to shoot his hands. I want to shoot his hands. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? He had a video camera wrapped around inside of his coat that was wrapped around his hands, and they calmed him down. They go, GRONK, go up, go back up. Yeah, but if he's a good shot, he can just shoot me down. There have been worse things. There was this woman who stopped me as I was entering into another museum, and she came up to me and she goes, she had all her hair combed in front of her, and she's like, sign this for me. Just sign this for me. I can't be around people. And I said, well, I'm doing a lecture in about 2 minutes, and there's a lot of people in there. And she goes, just sign this. I've got something for you. And she pulled out this drawing, and it was of this man with his neck cut out and smeared with blood. And I said, thank you. But I got to go give a lecture. And the security guards, were talking to me afterwards, and they go, your friend that you talked to? And I said, my friend? I don't even know that person. Well, when we said, have a nice day, as she was leaving, she snapped at us and said, yeah, if Satan would only let me. She asked where you were staying, what hotel, but we didn't give out the information. Oh, great. But other things have happened. I mean, I was doing this show in Rochester, New York, at the Memorial Museum there. And again, I'm doing my piece in front of people, and people are talking and looking and watching. A group of elementary school kids come in, and they're asking me about my work. And I said, well, you know what I do? I use the circle, the square, and the triangle. It's sort of like the building blocks of design, but it's also the building blocks of the universe. And I'm trying to figure out which one is causing all the chaos. Is it the circle, the square, or the triangle? Little girl, 5-year-old, jumps off mother's lap. It's the circle! And I said, thank you. Now you don't have to continue, but go back to my piece anymore. Another kid raises his hand. Was there any moment that you had doubt? And I like look at him and all his kids, and he's like the pudgy little boy with the little glasses and stuff like that. Are you speaking of like an existential kind of doubt, like Sartre's being and nothingness? Teacher goes, oh, come on kids, time to go. We got to go to the next exhibition. Let's get out of here. So you get a lot of information from a lot of different sources that propels my work. But are there any questions? How much is your bullshit worth? Oh.
We know what kind of films you like,
Uh-huh.
but what kind of art do you like to surround yourself with?
Ninon Sevilla to me is like an art piece in herself.
What other artists do you
It's a big range. I mean, there's Ilpu, who directed the finished film. Peter Sellers, who's a director. You know, even harking back to, you know, German Expressionism, Max Beckmann. But, you know, just like all kinds of different sources have really influenced the direction of my work. Usually when I travel and I go to a museum, I ask, well, do you have any Philip Guston's? Because I really like his work. And usually most museums do have a Phil Guston work. I like his work. You know, but the range is so big. And sometimes when I'm written about, they always compare me to certain people. I'm always surprised as to who they usually, you know, associate me with. But you know, I'm flattered if they do that. You know, it's better than being called names and stuff, you know. So, or yes, if only Satan would let me. Come on.
Most of the stuff you're doing now is in museums, things, or are you still doing?
Street pieces. It varies. Like the pieces that Harry and I do, sometimes they're still very hit and run, and we document things. Early on, we actually spray canned the outside of the LA County Museum with our names. And then, like, you know, 21 years later, I'm on the inside. So, you know, early beginnings, you know, you move in. But at that time, you know, there was nobody like me in that museum. But, yeah, I'm still doing things. A lot of the things that, in fact, like the Peter Sellers piece in Los Angeles, we took it to parks and did it on the streets, you know. And there are other things. I think, you know, your work changes, you know, over time. It's like sometimes I get back to my city of Los Angeles and people wonder, like, what happened to you? It's like your work's changed so much. Well, if you followed me all these different places that I go to, you'd know how it sort of evolved or transformed. And so sometimes I did this show. It was called Perdida. Was the title of all the pieces, and it's a lot of scratch marks and imagery that is completely different than, like, say 5-6 years ago. And early on, I was doing more very pop, bright, flat caricatures. I'm not doing that anymore so much. You know, it's not something that's exciting for me anymore. So you just, you know, continually, hopefully, grow, and the work evolves and change, and, you know, your life changes, hopefully, as well. I no longer live in that, you know, transient hotel or yeah, that place. But you see, those kinds of things still stay with me, though. And even doing the street pieces, a lot of the pieces that Oscar did that are in the book that are documented was against the law when we were doing them. So we couldn't really tell people, oh, we're going to do, yeah, I'm going to play this gang war victim, and I'm going to lie in the middle of the street, and we're going to put flares all around, then we're going to get it broadcast on television as I was, like, really dead. And so we actually did a piece like that where it was broadcast, like, last decoy gang war victim in East Los Angeles. You know, it's just like a sensational thing. There we are with our camera taking photographs of the TV broadcast of that, because that was going to be our documentation. So a lot of the times we infiltrated media and did several things. There's a couple of movies that I appear in also in Hollywood. One is, it's like this really cheesy, bad movie. But the director asked me if I would like to do a walk-on on it. And there I am in front of the judge with a bunch of spray cans in my back pocket. And, you know, the actors, like, walk right past me, but, you know, there it is, you know, that image. Another one was a Whoopi Goldberg film called Burglar. And she walks into this museum, this gallery, and it's the gallery that represents me in Los Angeles. And there she sees this big painting of mine. And of course she says, like, oh, you know, it fit lovely in my bedroom, you know, and it's like a stupid little joke, but there's my painting in it. So there's a lot of different things that, you know, sort of infiltrated in certain ways. Good questions, but that little kid, did you have any doubt? Now that was like, yes.
Have you ever revealed the face or the true identity of La Tormenta, Diaz, or Paris?
No. It's like it'll always be the back. I mean, I'm not quite sure. I make up things about her. Initially, I wanted something very dramatic. I want something very operatic. I wanted something that had a timeless quality, that can move through time. It's like that classical black dress, somebody that you don't have an identity to. All of those things, that mystery, it's like a Graham Greene book. I mean, just like a lot of mystery to it. And so to me, to reveal it would defeat it in a lot of ways. So it's like I prefer it just to be that mystery. Other people say it's me because I've turned my back on a lot of situations or things in my own life. The Freuds say mother, because I grew up with a single parent. I was the kid that in middle school, I was doing these ceramic pieces, and they were like these elongated African masks. And the first time I met a bohemian was this woman. She had like her hair all over the place. She had beads, a black skirt, mini skirt, black stockings, and she asked me if I wanted some brown rice after class. And I said, sure, I've never had it before. So, and her name was Miss Leduc. And her daughter ran for vice president with Nader. So she was this woman, and it's just like, wow, like all those beads and everything. And she kept me after school, and she goes, you're doing all these African masks, and you're doing all these patterns on them, but you're doing a lot of them. What are you doing with them? You're taking them home. And I said, well, I'm burying them all over East LA, because in the future, I want an archaeologist to find them and wonder how the hell did they get here. And she looked at me, she goes, okay, you're going to take an awful lot of shit from a lot of people. Don't listen to them. Just continue to do what you do. So that little approval from your art instructor at that particular moment in your life, just like, oh boy, it's like it's open day for me to do pretty much whatever I want to do. So it really, like a lot of different things have influenced me along the way as well.
Would you say something about urban archaeology as imagery?
I tend to be influenced by the environment also where I live, and it's an urban kind of an environment. And there's an awful lot of different things that take place in a kind of city situation. Say, for instance, a shape that protrudes off of a building. It's sort of like an Art Deco shape. I'll use that. But now perhaps a Korean family owns that building, and so now you see these plump letters being placed onto this shape. So it's like one culture left its mark, and then another culture utilizes what the former culture left behind. So I tend to use that. In downtown LA where I live, there's this Warner Brothers theater, and Warner Brothers has a logo, and it's in the shape of a shield. You see like Daffy Duck and everybody popping out of that logo all the time. But now it's the jewelry mart. So there's a big diamond placed right in the middle of that shield. So again, one culture left its mark, and then another culture comes along and utilizes what the former culture left behind. Almost like an archaeological dig. You can look and see the many different layers. Well, it's taking place in cities. To me, it's like I look out, I don't drive. I take public transportation. And so I'll see like signs that say, teriyaki burrito. Wow, language is merging there. Casa Oriental, so it's just like, an assortment of things that sort of influence me as well. So I pull from that sources as well as, other things. And art history. I mean, it's like that series of tornadoes that I did here, I sort of like went through art history. It was like, there's the Expressionist tornado. There's the Bauhaus tornado. There's the conceptual tornado. No, it's not there. And then, and then so it was like a series of tornadoes, but it was, sort of the art history kind of influencing that. Yes?
I'm interested about when you go to these places to do installations, what you go with. I mean, it seems like a lot of it's improvisational.
Right.
In case that doesn't kick in, or what.
Right. When I did my show here, it was called Iron Weave. And I was walking down the street where I live, and I happened to glance out of the corner of my eye, and I saw this advertisement, and it said, iron weave pantyhose. And I said, wow, that's an urban protection shield. And I liked the idea that it was iron weave. It's like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm weaving this landscape here in this kind of situation. I usually bring in, like, from a lot of the journals, a lot of the different stories and sources. I'll pull from that information and utilize it, but a lot of it is improvised. A lot of it is by chance of hearing that kid, another kid asking me, like, oh, could you draw a horse? And I'm like, oh, okay. But, there's a lot of different things. They have to trust me, for one thing. I don't give them a pre-sketch, or usually I'll give maybe a title that I'm working on, but beyond that, there's no pre-sketch, no pre-plan. The materials are usually gathered from where it is that I go. And here it was Muntz Paints, because I saw that's what you have here. We don't have it in California, so I saw that and I said, well, most people are familiar with that. I want that big bucket to be in my tray of materials, so people can actually see that this is part of your community. This is where I got these materials to create this piece. So a lot of it is improvised, and it's all chance. There hasn't been a time where I come into a place and say, gee, I don't have an idea of what to do. Because then you would be defeated before you even start. So I usually go in and have the boxer kind of attitude where you throw the first punch, because if you think too much about it, you're going to get knocked out before you complete it. So for me, it's the immediacy of going in and attacking a place and getting as much done as I can. And if it doesn't make sense, I mean, it's like, you can cover it, and you can go on and move on. So for me, a lot of the times it's the process of doing. I know you hear that all the time, but for me, the process is probably the most important aspect of the work. It's the actual doing of something, and outcomes not necessarily are that important. Yes, I want something documented, and yes, I want something like I feel comfortable and satisfied with, and hopefully it answers some questions for me, or maybe I pose new questions that are not answerable at this moment in time for me, or that I'm unaware of. Yes? The large-scale works, the request, and is written usually into the contract, is that they get whitewashed. So the piece that was here is still there, but it's got a big whitewash on it. And that's part of the process of the piece, is that nobody owns it. It's owned by the people who experienced it. They become the collectors, in a sense. And that, to me, is like part of that whole process of something very temporal, ephemeral, that doesn't last. But for me, that whole aspect of it is, life itself is very temporal, and you have to appreciate it for what it is. I was telling a group of kids, and I guess I shouldn't have told them because everybody was like looking at me like, how shocking. I was saying, we're really basically on this rock, the planet. Now, when I die, I'm going to still be on this rock. And people that came before me that have died, well, they're still on this rock. People in the future that come after me are going to die. They're going to still be on this rock. This rock is going through space, and no one's driving it. And it's like started hugging each other, Oh, don't say that. They start holding on to each other because they fear gravity is going to lose its grip. Well, thank you for showing up tonight. And I took notes and I didn't use them.